June is the most treacherous month of the year in the garden. Plain and simple. Either your plants explode with pounds of produce, or the scorching sun, heat waves, and pests destroy months of hard work in just 3 days. To make sure you don't lose a single plant, we're cutting straight to the chase today. I'm going to show you the 20 mandatory things you must do this exact month if you want to save and multiply your harvest. There's no time to waste, the season is decided right now. So grab your tools, because we are starting immediately with number 1. The secret this month is all about rhythm. If you lose focus for even 1 week, your garden will completely overrun you. That's why I've broken these 20 tasks into 4 vital blocks, ranging from structure to watering and pest control. Let's kick things off with vertical maintenance, which is what will support your entire production. We start with the most urgent task, pruning tomato suckers. If you let your tomato plants run wild in June, they will turn into an unmanageable jungle full of leaves but without a single tomato. Look closely. Right here in the crotch, between the main stem and the branch, a secondary shoot emerges. That is a sucker. If you let it grow, it will steal all the energy from the plant. How do you remove it? Avoid pruners if you can so you don't spread diseases from one plant to another. Simply grab it with your fingers, give it a quick snap to the side, and that's it. A clean click. Always do this in the morning so the wound dries quickly under the day's sun and heals perfectly. Task number 2. Staking and tying. In June, plants hit their definitive growth spurt and the first fruits begin to set. If you get complacent and don't tie them up right now, the first heavy summer storm or the sheer weight of the tomatoes will snap the main stem, and it's game over for that plant. Drive your stake or support firmly into the ground. When tying, use a soft twine like raffia. The ultimate secret is to make a figure-8 knot. Never wrap the twine tightly against the stem. Always leave a loose loop because that stem is going to double in thickness over the next few weeks. If you strangle it, you will completely choke off the sap flow. Moving on to number 3, bottom pruning for airflow. Look at the lower section of your tomato plants. All those old leaves touching the ground or turning completely yellow are contributing nothing to the plant. On the contrary, they are the perfect gateway for fungi like powdery mildew or blight when you water. Cut away the first foot of leaves from the ground up without hesitation. Clearing the base achieves 2 vital goals for June. First, air circulates much better between the plants, dropping ambient humidity, and second, watering won't splash soil onto the low leaves. Absolute cleanliness at the base. Task 4, pinching back your herbs, especially basil. In June, as the heat rolls in, these plants instinctively want to flower to produce seeds. If you let them bolt, the plant will stop producing tender leaves and the flavor will turn bitter. Use your fingernails to pinch off the very tip where the flower bud starts. This forces the plant to branch out and become incredibly bushy. And we wrap up this first block with number 5. Managing sucker growth on fruit trees. Take a close look at your citrus or loquat trees. If you spot branches growing completely vertical with aggressive force right from the center of the tree, those are water sprouts. They won't bear fruit and are just robbing water and nutrients from the fruit that is already sizing up. Strip them out now to open up the interior of the tree. Structure is ready. But now comes the real challenge of June. The sun is starting to bake the earth. We are heading straight into the watering block, number 6. We are diving straight into our second major block, smart watering, because in June, the sun shows absolutely no mercy. Task number 6 is all about adjusting your watering frequency. If you are still watering on your spring schedule, your plants are going to go into severe heat stress. You'll notice their leaves curling upward during the day just to protect themselves from transpiration, and their flowering will grind to a complete halt. In June, the goal isn't to flood your garden beds until they become a muddy swamp. It's about delivering frequent, controlled watering. We need that moisture to reach the deep root systems consistently. Dig your finger into the soil. If it feels dry 3 centimeters down, it's time to turn on the water. You must maintain this steady moisture balance, or your fruits will split and crack later on. Let's move on to number 7, one of my absolute favorite techniques to save you both time and money, the magic of mulching. Leaving your garden soil completely bare under the harsh June sun is a critical mistake. Direct sunlight evaporates your irrigation water in a matter of minutes, bakes the roots, and compacts the topsoil into a hard crust that literally suffocates your plants. To fix this, cover the entire surface of your growing beds with a generous, thick layer of straw, dry leaves, or completely dried grass clippings. This organic shield is going to keep the ground incredibly fresh, prevent weeds from popping up and competing for vital nutrients, and best of all, you are going to save up to 40% of your water usage this summer. It is an absolute game changer. Task number 8, changing your watering clock. If you are still watering at noon or in the late afternoon when the sun is still blasting hot, you need to stop right now. Watering under the full sun causes a lens effect with the water droplets, severely burning the delicate leaf tissues. On top of that, you are wasting more than half of your water to instant evaporation before it even hits the roots. You want to set your timers or head out to water during the early hours of dawn, or well after sunset once the soil has completely cooled down. Dawn is actually the absolute ideal time because it allows the plants to hydrate right before facing the worst heat of the day, and the soil absorbs every single drop without losing anything along the way. Number 9 is a technical but absolutely mandatory task, inspecting your drip irrigation system. As the June heat spikes, if just a single emitter gets clogged by hard water scale, mineral buildup, or dirt, the plant depending on it will completely wither and die in less than 48 hours. You need to go through your lines bed by bed, ensuring every single drip point is releasing its correct flow rate. If you spot a blocked emitter, use a fine needle to clear out the opening, or soak it in a little bit of vinegar if lime scale has completely locked it up. Making sure that water reaches every single corner of your garden bed uniformly will save you from devastating surprises and plants dead overnight. And we wrap up the watering block with task number 10, the deep settling pour for new transplants. June is your very last train to replace any losses in the garden or put in backup crops to fill those empty spaces. But dropping a young, tender root system into soil that is already baking hot is a high-risk operation. The moment you set your new plant into the ground, give it a massive settling pour. You need to completely saturate the area to eliminate any hidden air pockets around the roots and ensure the root ball fully fuses with the surrounding wet soil. This heavy soak guarantees the plant won't suffer from transplant shock and will start growing strong from the very first minute. With the water fully under control and your soil heavily protected, the summer heat is about to bring in the real enemies of the month, bugs and fungi. We are launching straight into our garden defense block with task number 11, hunting down aphids. In June, as temperatures spike and plants push out flush after flush of tender new growth, aphids will appear practically overnight. Do not make the amateur mistake of just looking at your plants from above. The ultimate secret is to regularly inspect the underside of the leaves and the very tips of the newest growth, because that is exactly where these tiny green, black, or yellow pests hide to suck the life force out of your crops. If you notice your plant leaves starting to curl, pucker, or look strangely sticky, you have an aphid infestation. That brings us to task 12, watching out for the aphids' ultimate allies, ants. A lot of gardeners see ants crawling up their plants and think they are harmless, but in the garden ecosystem, ants are actually highly organized livestock farmers. Ants actively protect aphids from their natural predators, like ladybugs and lacewings, in exchange for a sweet, sticky substance called honeydew that the aphids secrete as they feed. If you do not stop the ants, they will literally carry the aphids to healthy, uninfected plants to start brand new colonies and expand their farming territory. You need to cut off their highway. Wrap a piece of double-sided sticky tape around the base of the main stem, or heavily dust the soil around the trunk with diatomaceous earth to stop the ants in their tracks. Without their protective army, the aphids will be left completely defenseless against beneficial predators. Task number 13, applying the ultimate organic knockout punch. To clear out an active aphid infestation safely and naturally, we are going to use an absolute powerhouse combination, potassium soap and neem oil. The potassium soap works by softening the insect's protective outer shell and washing away the sticky honeydew mess, while the neem oil acts as a systemic insecticide that disrupts their feeding, hormones, and reproductive cycles. The crucial, non-negotiable rule in June is to spray this mixture strictly at dusk, once the direct sun has completely left your garden. If you spray under the blazing midday sun, the droplets will act as a magnifying glass and completely fry your plant's foliage. Thoroughly blast the plant from the bottom up, making sure to heavily soak the underside of every single leaf, and repeat this process every 3 days until the pests are completely wiped out. Now for number 14, the red spider mite inspection. The bone-dry air and suffocating heat waves of June create the absolute perfect paradise for these microscopic arachnids. Unlike aphids, red spider mites are almost entirely invisible to the naked eye, but you will easily spot their damage because the leaves will start developing tiny, pale yellow speckles across the top surface, making the foliage look washed out, dusty, and sick. In more advanced attacks, you will see incredibly fine, miniature spider webs wrapping around the stems and leaf joints. Red spider mites absolutely despise high humidity. So, your best preventative maintenance strategy in June, besides a good dusting of sulfur, is to blast clean water over your plant's foliage late in the evening. Knocking down the temperature and breaking that dry microclimate disrupts their reproductive cycle before they can colonialize and defoliate your crops. And we close out our defense block with task 15, blocking summer fungi, especially powdery mildew, also known as white mold. In June, it is incredibly common to experience sudden, intense summer thunderstorms followed immediately by scorching, humid afternoons. That exact combination of high humidity and soaring temperatures is the ultimate trigger that wakes up fungal spores. Look out for your squash, zucchinis, and tomatoes. If you see patches of what looks like white flour or ash spreading across the leaves, the fungus has already taken hold. You need to act before that happens. Apply an organic preventative spray made from horsetail decoction, which heavily strengthens the plant's cellular walls, or a light application of copper or sulfur right after a heavy rain. Do not wait until your leaves are coated in white dust. Get ahead of the spores to keep your foliage clean, green, and working at peak capacity all summer long. Your garden is now fully fortified, locked down, and completely pest-free. We are launching straight into our final block with task number 16, the golden minute for your watermelons and melons. If you let your melons grow completely wild in June, you are going to end up with a massive carpet of leaves and male flowers, but absolutely zero fruit. You must pinch off the main driving vine right above the 4th or 5th leaf. Doing this forces the plant to push out secondary side shoots, which is exactly where the female flowers grow that actually produce your melons. And here is a classic old-school pro tip: place an old clay tile or a flat piece of wood directly underneath every single developing fruit. When melons and watermelons grow sitting straight on top of damp, freshly watered soil, they become an instant target for ground pests, rot, and soil-borne fungi. Lifting them off the dirt keeps them clean and perfectly safe. Also, keep this crucial warning in mind: while they are growing right now, they need steady water, but just before harvest time, we will cut back on watering almost completely to force the plant to concentrate its sugar so your melons taste incredibly sweet instead of completely watery. Let's move on to task 17, fighting blossom end rot, also known as the black bottom on your tomatoes. It is incredibly common in June for the very first round of setting tomatoes to suddenly develop a dry, leathery, black sunken patch right at the base of the fruit. A lot of beginners panic and assume it's a contagious fungus, but in reality, it is a severe calcium deficiency inside the plant, almost always triggered by highly irregular watering cycles. If you let your soil dry out to bone-dry dust and then suddenly flood it with water, the plant's vascular system suffers a massive shock and completely loses its ability to absorb calcium from the earth. To fix this instantly, keep your watering schedules perfectly uniform like we set up in Block 2, and if the problem keeps popping up, apply a liquid calcium spray directly onto the foliage at dusk for an immediate rescue. Task number 18 is all about the final fruit-boosting fertilizer. By the time June rolls around, your plants have already burned through an immense amount of nitrogen just to build up their frames and grow tall. But now that they are heavily loaded with blossoms and tiny developing fruits, what they urgently need is a massive dose of potassium and phosphorus to make those tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants literally explode in size, density, and flavor. Top-dress your beds with a generous layer of worm castings or apply an organic fertilizer rich in potassium and phosphorus every 15 days. Feeding your crops heavily at this exact developmental window is what makes the absolute difference between harvesting small, tough, flavorless vegetables or pulling down massive, juicy, award-winning pieces of produce all summer long. Now for number 19, taking advantage of the very last direct summer sowings. June is your absolute final train to plant fast-cycling, heat-tolerant crops straight into the ground, like summer squash, bush beans, or sweet corn. If you get these seeds in the dirt right now, you will perfectly stagger your production, meaning you'll have a massive wave of crisp, fresh harvests coming in late summer right when your spring-planted crops start to slow down. Because the ground temperature is so warm in June, these seeds are going to germinate in just 3 to 4 days, which is incredibly fast compared to spring. Just make sure to keep the seeding zone consistently damp every single day until they sprout so the intense midday sun doesn't scorch the tiny seedlings as they break through the crust. And we arrive at task number 20, the most rewarding job of them all, harvesting on time. Do not leave your ripe vegetables sitting on the vine for too long thinking they will just keep getting bigger and better. Leaving a fully mature fruit on the plant sends a massive chemical signal down the stem that basically says, "Our job is done, we have made viable seeds." The moment the plant receives that signal, it completely slows down or halts the production of new flowers. Harvesting continuously and picking your produce the moment it's ready triggers the plant to constantly keep churning out new blossoms and setting fresh fruit week after week. If you strictly follow these 20 mandatory tasks over the next few weeks, I guarantee your garden is going to undergo a spectacular transformation this summer. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss a single step of our garden's progress. Let me know down in the comments how many of these tasks you've already checked off your list, and I will see you all in the very next video.